How are you?
Hey.
I'm excited for this.
I know, this is awesome. Thank you, Tori.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you.
Yeah, congrats to you as well.
Hi, Tori. I'm Justin Fleming. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I've served in the General Assembly for 2 years. And I just got reelected here in November, so I'm looking forward to my next term in the State House.
Well, welcome. Hi, Tory Blew, state rep, soon to be state senator. Yes, very,
awesome.
very exciting. It's definitely interesting to go from 23,000, 25,000, so forth. We just redistricted into 73,000 people.
Yes.
One county that I grew up in to 11 counties, so forth. But I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So we just did a redistricting in 2022, and the prior district was literally an hour and a half from the top of the district to the bottom.
Oh my goodness.
My district now is about 35 minutes. You can get from one end to the other. So I can't imagine 11 counties in Kansas. I mean, how like what's the furthest reach sort of from your home, and like how long will it take you to get there if there's an event up there?
So luckily for me, I live right kind of in the middle. It's an upside down
Okay.
L. So I live at where the L connects. So
you can go like each way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's not bad. Some areas it's 2 hours, some areas so forth. And it's all rural. So
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is knowing where to stop for gas. Where am I going to go have lunch real quick?
Right.
I am on the campaign trail, I was going to ask you this, but on the campaign trail, I survived off of Celsius and Reese's Fast Breaks.
Yes. A lot of, Pennsylvania is the snack food capital of the world. I don't know if you're aware of this.
No, news to me.
And I mean, I don't know how far brands go, like out in Kansas, but like Hers, do you guys have Hers or Utz?
No.
Okay. That's, I'm trying to think, Lay's.
Yeah.
Lay's is a national brand. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of, Hers Foods in the Philadelphia area. Utz is in South Central Pennsylvania where I am. And it's a whole bunch of one of the best things, Snyder's is a pretzel company. One of the best things they make are the broken honey mustard pretzels.
Okay.
And so if I was in a pinch, I would get iced tea.
Okay.
And honey mustard pretzels just to survive the canvas or the door knocking, because and I think this is not, this may be an area that people don't understand. I mean, they see us getting elected, they see election night and the party and everything like that. But just talk to me about, especially you had experience in the state house. And then a state senate seat, which is, geographically much larger. Talk about the difference in that breadth of a campaign.
So it's definitely interesting on the fact that, again, I represented just my hometown, my home county. I grew up, I knew all these people. So campaigning for my house seat, I'm not gonna say it was easy,
right?
But it was much easier compared to even going to the surrounding counties, then those surrounding counties where you don't have any name ID, you have to reestablish who you are. You have to do those chamber coffees. You have to county fair circuit.
Yes.
All of those, every single parade. And this is what drives me crazy about some politicians.
Yeah.
If you're in a parade and you're not passing out candy, what are you doing?
Right. I mean, come on. That's.
Yeah. There's so many that just ride, and I'm thinking, walk it.
That's
Come
right.
on,
Yeah.
work it, walk it.
Candidate 101, right?
And no kid wants a palm card.
No.
You need to have candy.
Yes. Now, if you have a lollipop attached to the palm card,
that's a totally different situation.
That's the best of both worlds. But
Yeah.
it's fascinating and remarkable. I just lived this experience actually through a really good friend and colleague. I've known her for 20 years. She just won a state senate seat where we are. So now our districts are going to overlap. So I'm looking forward. But to your point, I mean, Pennsylvania is much larger than Kansas by population. So the legislative district that I represent has about 62,000 people. The state's,
For your house seat?
For my house seat, yeah. So
Wow.
I had to do a lot of outreach, but it's a dense population. It's first ring suburbs of our capital city, Harrisburg. So it was actually really, really manageable compared to the other seat. But the Senate district is about 4 times as large. We were talking earlier, we have 203 members in the House. and 50 senators. So it's each Senate district is about 4 House districts, roughly. So I just want to say kudos to you. It's amazing. And so now that you're in the state Senate, does your agenda change? What are the kinds of things, like what are you now able to do in the state Senate that may be a little easier lift from a policy perspective than in the state House?
Well, I think to kind of go back a little bit, when I first got elected 8 years ago, not that my priorities are different, but my priorities are different. Yes. I was single.
Okay.
I was the first one at the Capitol, the last one to leave, because I didn't have a husband to come home to. I was renting. I didn't have a garden to come home and pick through. Yeah. Those hobbies you get when you get older.
Right.
And so it's different now on the fact that now I am a new mom, and now childcare is a number one issue for me. And it's been an issue for me. We struggled. IVF is something I'm really passionate about as well. Those are issues that, quite frankly, 22-year-old Tory, she would have cared about, but it's different when it truly affects you.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to ask you about that, because I think I marveled when we were talking, before we started rolling, and you said you got elected at 21 years old. 23, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was elected at 42, and I feel like I needed every minute of that experience, being a dad. How did you handle that just out of college, being so young and sort of thrust into that? I mean, I know you chose it because you chose to run, but like what was that like, just digesting all of it? And had you had did you intern in the State House? What prior experience sort of led you there?
So I did intern in the State House. I was actually supposed to student teach, and I was all set up to student teach in my high school. The teacher I was student teaching underneath, he was going to leave to go to a different school. Wow. I mean, it was a walk in the park shoe-in. I had a job ready, and I just had this gut feeling thinking, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow. And
so I went ahead and I said, I'm going to intern in Topeka. So I moved home. It took me 5 years to graduate. So
no, that's okay.
my 5th year, my victory lap, I moved home and drove back and forth to college. It was an hour, so not a bad commute. And instead of, again, I was supposed to be student teaching. And so where I live to the Capitol is 3 hours. And so I woke up, left my house at 5, got to the Capitol by 8, interned there, drove home, did it Tuesday, Thursdays. I was a substitute teacher on the side. So that kind of, every once in a while, I would say, hey, Representative Boldra, I'm really sorry, but they really need subs today. And she was, go do it. You need subs, so forth. So I did intern. I did know the process. I am a parliamentarian nut.
Oh,
procedure
wonderful.
nut.
Yes.
And so, but if you know the rules,
right,
then you can steer a committee. You can steer policy. And so I knew that was key. So I did that. But throughout the whole process, I noticed, and the reason I ran was nothing against the guy that was there. Right. He was just never there. And I didn't disagree with him, but I thought, I want my people to have a voice.
That's right.
We deserve a voice. And so he ended up he filed unfiled, retired.
Okay.
And so I hopped on right away, and that's how I got in. But it's one of those, I had to grow up. I mean, I was 22 at the time. You have to grow up. You have to say, hey, all my friends are out to have fun. I got to learn, how are we going to fund schools? Right. We have a budget deficit. Yes. Mom, teach me taxes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not, honestly, it's not easy at any age.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said, though, relative to the schedule, and you're being 3 hours from Topeka now that you are a new mom.
Yeah.
Last session, obviously you're going to enter this session as a state senator.
Yeah.
How is that going to change with your new baby, and how are you going to manage the schedule? Are you able to get childcare for when you're in session, and what does that look like?
So luckily my husband just switched jobs, and so his headquarters is an hour away from Topeka. Okay. So I'm hopeful maybe that could work out. But there is a nanny group in Topeka that I'm very thankful that hopefully I can help out and reach out to them. Our child care provider, luckily, I mean, I was on the child care waiting list the day after we got married. And so that's something where, that's why it's so important to me on the fact that, yes, I had a spot open 3.5 years later.
Right. Oh,
but on the flip side, think about those people who, you know, they weren't planning it, or they did plan it, but their wait list is much longer and they don't have a spot to go. So one of the things I want to work on this session is a pilot program for a child care. I don't really want to call it a center, but some type of child care at the State House for state employees.
Oh, that's wonderful.
To help get younger folks in the legislature. You know, we talked earlier about you guys are a full-time legislature. We're a part-time legislature. Pay is really important. If you don't, we used to make $88.66 a day.
Oh my goodness. Is that when you served?
Yeah.
While you were serving?
So this next year we're getting a pay increase.
Yeah.
But no wonder it's only wealthy people that we're in, because you could afford it.
Right.
I can't live off of $15,000. And what job allows you to be gone for, hey, I'm going to take a leave of absence for 4 months, but I'll be right back. Could you keep my spot?
Right. Well, I mean, you get 3 months with the federal FMLA, but it's unpaid.
Yeah.
And who can do that in today's environment?
Yeah. So tell me about your guys' legislature, and with it being full-time, I don't even know how that would work. Do you work 5 days a week?
Yes, full-time. We do stretch the definition of full-time, I have to say. We are full-time in the sense that, you know, once we gavel in, so when we start this new session, we're going to go from, I believe it's January 3rd is swearing in, 2025, and our legislative session ends November 30th, 2026. So we have a 2-year legislative cycle, and we are basically in session most of that time, except there's a 3-week break after the governor does the budget address in February. We have budget hearings, and I'm on the appropriations committee. So I'm going to be part of those budget hearings. So we hear from most every state department. We scrutinize the governor's budget. Okay, you asked for an increase in this, or this is decreased, why? And so we have that back and forth. And that takes up about 3 weeks. So we'll be in session sort of the end of January, break for the budget address, and then come back the end of March. And we'll we may miss a week or two. Our session days are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Thursday, Friday is basically in district. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when we're in session, we are in the Capitol building. We are doing our legislative business, and we'll go basically, like I say, we may miss 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll go basically from the end of March through the end of June. Our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30, and so we technically have to get our budget done on June 30th every year. And then we typically break for the summer. Okay. And then we'll come back in September through November. And so it is full time. And I will say, you know, even when we're not in session, you know, some people think, oh, well, you know, they only did 90 or 100 session days. Well, you know, the days we're not in session, I'm in my district going to Rotary clubs, taking meetings with constituents and, you know, people who run organizations, and, you know, going to events that we're invited to. Just yesterday, I was at an event for a senior living facility, 65 senior living units. I mean, they're celebrating their 50th year anniversary. So, you know, things like that. So we're always, it's busy. And I mean, Saturdays or, you know, there are a lot of demands on your time. I try from a family perspective, like I said earlier, I have a son who's 18, he's a senior in high school. My daughter is 12, she's in middle school. I try to reserve Sundays for us to be together as a family, but I'll be completely honest, Tori, I haven't been that great. Because this job means a lot to me, and I'm very dedicated to it. And I think, you know, I get the same sense from you that you are just dedicated to public service. Like, this is clearly what you've chosen for your vocation, and you're passionate about it. And so for those of us who are wired that way, it's hard to see beyond the work sometimes. And I know as a new mom, like, you know, it can't be an easy tug and pull. Like I said, my kids were what? My son, I think, was 15, and my daughter was 9 when I got elected. So it's, you know, they were pretty much grown up. But I can imagine those will be challenges.
It's definitely been, for instance, she came early, just 2 days, but still early. Was not on my plan. So good life lesson. Some things you can't plan for, yes. Right? But I was planning. I mean, I was Saturday evening. I ended up going to the hospital, but Saturday the afternoon, I was printing off my donor letters, and I had them all, and I had everything packed to go to the hospital with me because I knew I'm in the middle of campaign season.
Because you were in the thick of the campaign.
I was in the middle of campaign season, and so I had my donor letters brought with me. So literally the day, she's not even 24 hours, she's taking a nap, I'm writing, "Hi, I really enjoy working with you. Would you mind donating to my campaign?"
Yeah. So you have to tell me. So were you that mom then in the fall who was knocking doors while you had the stroller? Yeah. A friend of mine did that a couple of years ago. Literally had a baby in January. And then by the time she circulated petitions, by April, she was knocking doors with her stroller or the baby Bjorn.
So she was born, and not even 2 weeks later, we were in our first parade. And I walked the parade, and
God bless you.
Everyone kept saying, "Oh, right." It was a parade through time, and my uncle, he had a bunch of Army vehicles, older Army vehicles in it. And so everyone said, "Oh, just ride with him." And I said, "No, I'm going to walk it. I'm here to walk it." And she had her little onesie on, and I had mine, and we walked the whole thing. And that was something to me. I had a lot of people say, "Wow, you're here to work hard." And I said, "I'm not taking this for granted." And so my daughter's been in a ton of parades. And she has her own onesie that we wear everywhere, that everyone wonders if she has any other clothes besides campaign clothes. But it's something that everyone, I think I had a lot of folks that I think they wanted me to fail. And I wanted to prove to them that I can be a mom, I can be a new mom, I can be newly elected, I can do all this, watch me.
Well, and I love hearing you say that, and I love the fact that you prove them all wrong, because one of my, and I was just talking to a colleague about this, one of my massive pet peeves is, I love the fact personally that we see more women in government positions, in state legislatures, in Congress, in the United States Senate, because I think, just thinking about my wife and her work ethic and everything, I mean, and women think differently. I mean, and this is not a shot at men. I mean, I think, men are capable as well, but I mean, women it's accomplish the mission, get it done. By any means necessary, you work with whomever you need to work with, and you get it done. And I think, with guys, other things can distract, like ego and things like that. Like, oh, yes, I want this thing done, but I want it done my way. Whereas I think women give less credence to that and are just worried about getting it done. And I will say I've personally witnessed journalists and others, when a woman is running, talk about or ask a female candidate how they're going to manage their family, how they're going to do this and manage their family. I made it no secret, like my family was on my literature. I did interviews when I was running. Not once was I ever asked, how am I going to serve in the state house with my 2 children? And it's mind-boggling to me. So kudos to you, and thank you for proving the haters wrong. Seriously.
I appreciate you saying that, because I had letters to the editor in these small towns saying she needs to be home with her kid. And it's something that, and I was so frustrated because there's other young men in the legislature that they just had kids and it was no big deal. Right. It was, "Hey, congrats. Right. That's so great. You have a really strong dad." And
meanwhile, I doubt dad was canvassing while with the stroller or with the baby,
So, no, I appreciate that. And there were some times that I get frustrated with the very conservative folks that are saying that I need to be home with my kid and not work at all. And that my job is, and it's, no, I'm going to work as well. I'm going to, I came from a family, my dad and mom started a business in 2004 with nothing. And it's one of those, I don't know your upbringing, but like we were ones, we've been talking about this a lot lately. So, but it's something that you don't realize that you grew up poor or not wealthy until you look back.
Right.
But I told my mom, I said, I had no idea. I thought everybody ate blue box macaroni and cheese and fish sticks for every meal or those kind of things. And she teared up a little bit. And she said, you don't know how much that means to me that you never once thought that we couldn't provide for you.
Yeah.
And that's something that, looking back, I saw their work ethic. I saw them have nothing and then grow this amazing company that hopefully my kids will be able to be part of, and their kids and so forth.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I definitely had that same experience. It's part of the reason why I'm involved in government. I mean, and I know, there are different perspectives on this and parties can differ, but I mean, my thought is, I think when good people, I know for a fact that when good people are running government can absolutely be a force for good because it has been in my life. I just briefly, I mean, I grew up, I was the kid who was on free and reduced lunch at school. I don't know how far back you go, but we had green lunch tickets to get my lunch. And so that's how I ate lunch, was with a green lunch ticket. And, we had food stamps, the big blocks of government cheese back in the 80s, and public housing. We lived in a public housing project. And it was, those things were the difference between, number one, eating and not eating, having a roof over my head and not. But it was a temporary condition for us, thank goodness. Like my parents were able to, my dad and my stepmother were able to like build from that, use that as a temporary resource, and then eventually build. My dad bought a house when he was 40 years old. So when I was in middle school, we moved to a home, and he just passed away in March. So, but he lived in that home for 31 years. It was his pride and joy. And it took him so long to earn it and to make it. And so that was, he worked his tail off. He was a truck driver. He was a blue collar guy. But he also, education was important because he knew that was foundationally a way out and fundamentally a way to change my life. I went to public college. I got a great public education, went to public college, paid for it myself with, federally backed student loans. So all of these little spots that I look at in my life, the government had a positive intervention. And, part of the reason why I'm serving is because I think my story, unfortunately, is less and less possible because we're not doing the right things from a public policy standpoint to really take care of our kids, like you were talking about with childcare.
Right.
Like affordable childcare and pre-K, like just to get kids off to the best start in life, those should be, like, we should just provide that as a matter of public policy. Regardless of the cost, because the return on investment is so great. And so, I look at those things and we do a good job in Pennsylvania of serving our elderly population because our lottery funds go to our older population, so senior centers and stuff like that. We don't have a similar pipeline to serve kids. We just made, with this last budget, we just made a massive $1.1 billion increased investment in education, in public education. And hopefully that's gonna, one of our big problems is runaway property taxes. So hopefully by infusing more state dollars in, we can reduce the property tax burden that people see. I mean, we've got older folks whose homes are paid off in like the southeast, near Philadelphia, in those suburbs, which are really expensive to live in, who are in danger of losing their homes because they can't afford the property taxes. They paid their mortgage off, they've worked their whole lives, but the property tax is what might get them out of there. It's sad. And
so we have a really big issue. We're taxing people out of our state. That's what it is. And so we're trying to lower property taxes as well. But the hard part is we do have a budget surplus,
right,
which is great.
yes,
I think that we should return it. It should go in property tax form. Not everybody owns a home though, so
Right.
so when you are cutting property taxes, you're only cutting those who are landowners
Yes.
or homeowners.
Yeah.
But those who rent, they say, oh, they'll lower the rent. They're not going to lower the rent. Let's be realistic. But then on the flip side of that too is we still have COVID dollars being spent. So we need to be conservative if we are going to cut the budget or lower property taxes. You can't do too much.
yeah,
Because then I don't want to be here in 5 years saying, well, shoot, we
Right.
did too much.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
so we have to be very careful on that approach. When you mentioned lottery funds, I think it's really interesting how every state does something different with their lottery funds. I border right next to Missouri, and I believe at the same time, and this is 30 years ago, so I was one, but the lottery was being introduced and voted on in both states at the same time. Well, what happens when you have states that are right next to each other? The commercials bleed over.
Right.
So what Missouri wanted to do with their funds was to fund education. So Kansans thought that's what was going to happen, was that our lottery funds fund education. Technically, our first $50 million is already called upon. It's for economic development incentives. It's for problem gambling funds,
Okay.
like all of
Yep.
that. So that first $50 million is already earmarked away.
Yeah.
Then the rest of it goes into our state general fund, which you pull from other things, but
Right.
it's not earmarked. And
Right.
so that's the number one concern we get from a lot of folks is they want to see our lottery funds earmarked for different things. If you're going to have a sin tax, then
Yes. Yeah.
utilize it a certain way.
Well, and I think just broadly, I think taxes are more palatable to people if now that's a consumer tax. But if you're going to raise, like I learned this in local government, I was a township commissioner. Like nobody complained when we raised our fire tax, for example, because that is our dedicated fund. And when their house is on fire, people want to be able to call the emergency number and know that a rig is on its way.
Yeah.
And so somebody's going to come and rescue them and put the fire out. So I think, or if you have a library tax or something, I think the research shows us that, those dedicated taxes can be really successful and people don't mind as long as it's going to a specific purpose. That just seems like opening up a Pandora's box if everything's going into the general fund.
I've reached out. The number one thing I did when I got in the legislature was I wanted to talk to everybody who's been there, whether you've been there for 1 year or 25 years or longer than I've been alive. There still are some people like that in the legislature. But my goal was to tell me the history.
Yeah.
What was it like in the 80s?
Yes.
What was it like in the 90s? What was it like when we had too much money, we didn't know what to do with it, and everybody had their hand out?
Yes.
What was it like when we had to cut, and where do you cut the fat? Where do you cut all of that? And you learn just from everybody. And so many people don't like to, they come in, I think, and they say, I'm change, I'm here to change it. But history repeats itself. You got to learn from it.
Yeah, and especially if you're not aware. So I was just doing the math in my head. So were you first elected when Governor Brownback was in?
Yes.
Okay, and then
The fact that you know Governor Brownback.
I'm a dork. So Sam Brownback, he served in the Senate as well. But I mean, you guys, that was kind of a model for what not to do during the Brownback administration. How did that work out? Or was it overblown? Is my perception overblown?
I think the thing about the Brownback administration and the real life tax experiment, it's one of those things. Again, I think it was cut too quickly, and I would be interested to see what it would have been like in a different type of economy.
Sure.
So yes, some people will say that I'm part of the problem. I think that the fact that he didn't tax LLCs and just there are just some minor things that it doesn't work right now.
Right.
Let's pivot.
Sure.
Let's so forth. But he was just so gun ho on this is my way. This is how we're going to do it. Right. But when I came in, that's when we had a budget deficit. We had to fund our schools. There was no more fat to cut off the state budget. So the question at that point was, what do we do first? Do you create your budget? Do you raise taxes so you know the amount that you have to raise?
Right.
Or do you fund schools first, get that out of the way, and then create your budget, and then the final piece is the tax that you know you have to raise? Well, it was really great to meet you, and I'm excited to continue to keep working with you. And talk offline about Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was a wild election season. Tory, I am absolutely awe-inspired by you. I think the Future Caucus has been amazing for me. I was a mental health and child advocate before I joined the General Assembly. And Republicans were in control of our legislature for 10 of the 12 years that I did that. And so working in a bipartisan fashion is old hat to me, especially in a state like Pennsylvania, where our governor liked to say this often during the last session, we were the only divided legislature in the country. And so that requires a level of partnership to get things done on behalf of our population in Pennsylvania. But I love Future Caucus and what they do for us and bringing wonderful people together like you, and the rest of our cohorts in Future Caucus. It's been an honor to sit and talk with you today.
Likewise.
It's been a real pleasure, Tory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your great work.
Yeah, thank you.